In the cities that never sleep, among the skyscrapers that scrape the sky, and the millions of faces that pass like ghosts, loneliness can be the most persistent shadow. For Leo, a 20-year-old university student in a city that never learned his name, loneliness was a heavy blanket, a constant hum in his ears. His days were a monotonous loop. Lectures where he sat at the back, a library that felt like a mausoleum of unread knowledge, and a small apartment that echoed with the silence of one. The only voices he heard with any frequency were those of content creators and streamers, digital companions in a world that seemed to have forgotten his physical existence. It was on one of these nights, falling down an internet rabbit hole of obscure forums, that Leo first found the legend of the Lonely Shadow. It wasn't a typical ghost story. The tale spoke of an entity that didn't haunt houses or graveyards, but people, specifically the truly lonely. The legend said that when someone's loneliness becomes so profound it creates a vacuum, something is drawn to fill it. A figure, tall and featureless, made of concentrated darkness, begins to appear at the edge of your vision. First, a glimpse in a reflection, then a shape at the end of a dimly lit hallway. The legend warned that the lonely shadow wasn't malicious, not at first. It was just a companion, a testament to your solitude. But the more you saw it, the more real it became, and the deeper you sank into isolation until the shadow was all you had left. Leo was captivated. The story felt tailor-made for him. He devoured every post, every supposed eyewitness account. Many dismissed it as a creepypasta, an internet horror story, but to Leo, it felt real, terrifyingly real. The days turned into weeks, and the legend nested in the back of his mind. He started looking for it. Every shop window he passed became a mirror to quickly inspect. Every time his computer screen went black, he'd peer into the glossy, dark surface, hoping to see more than his own pale face. And then it happened. He was walking home late one evening, the fine rain making the asphalt streets shine like obsidian. As he passed a dark storefront, he saw it. It wasn't his own reflection. Behind his image, another one loomed. It was tall, much taller than him, and its limbs seemed strangely long, disproportionate. It had no face, just a void where one should be. His heart hammered against his ribs. He spun around, but the street was empty. He looked back at the window. Only his own reflection stared back, eyes wide with panic. It was just a trick of the light, he told himself, an optical illusion caused by the rain and the streetlights. But the seed of belief had been planted, and it was starting to sprout. The second time was in his own apartment. He was in the hallway, the only light coming from the TV screen in the living room. For a split second, he saw a tall, thin silhouette standing in the doorway of his bedroom. He froze, his blood running cold. He blinked, and it was gone. From that point on, Leo's obsession bloomed into paranoia. The outside world became a minefield of reflective surfaces. He began to avoid going out. His classes became a source of anxiety, not because of the work, but because of the large classroom windows. His apartment, once a sanctuary, now felt like a cage he shared with an unseen presence. He stopped answering his parents' calls, his excuses growing thinner. How could he explain that he was too afraid to look at the dark screen of his phone? He began documenting the sightings in a notebook, the entries growing more frantic, his handwriting devolving into a scrawl. In the kettle's reflection, it was watching me make coffee. On the TV screen after the movie ended, it was right behind me. He covered the bathroom mirror with a towel. He avoided the hallway at night. He slept with a small lamp on, casting a sickly orange glow across the room, but he preferred it to the total darkness. His world had shrunk to the size of his fear. He was lonelier than ever, yet he felt like he was never alone. The shadow was always there, a silent spectator to his self-imposed isolation. One night, a fierce storm hit the city. The wind howled like a wounded creature, and rain lashed against his window. Suddenly, with a hum and a crack, the lights went out. The apartment was plunged into near total darkness. The only sound, the fury of the storm outside. Panic seized Leo. He fumbled through the room, hands outstretched, searching for candles, a lighter, anything. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely light the wick of a small candle on his coffee table. The flame flickered to life, casting monstrous, dancing shadows on the walls. And that's when he saw it. Not in a reflection, not in his periphery. It was right there, in the room with him. The lonely shadow stood by the window, darker than the night itself. It seemed to be stretching, its limbs elongating and distorting in the candlelight. Leo gasped, scrambling backward until his back hit the wall. "Please," he whispered into the void, "leave me alone." The figure didn't move. It seemed to be watching him, waiting. Fear gave way to a surge of desperate anger. "What do you want from me?" he yelled, his voice cracking. The figure remained silent. In a terrified act of defiance, Leo grabbed the candle. He needed to see. He needed to know what this thing was that had cornered him in his own life. With a trembling hand, he moved forward, pushing the small flame toward the darkness. For a moment, the candlelight illuminated the window pane, which was now pitch black from the power outage. Rain streamed down it like tears, and, in the reflective surface, bathed in the golden, wavering light, he saw the figure clearly for the very first time. He saw a face, a pale, gaunt face with dark circles under eyes wide with terror. He saw a body hunched over, shoulders curled in a posture of perpetual fear. He saw his own thin, weak arms, one of them outstretched, holding a candle. The tall, distorted figure was him. It had always been him. His own image, warped by the rippling glass, stretched by the flickering shadows, and, most importantly, twisted through the lens of his own crushing loneliness and burgeoning paranoia. The lonely shadow wasn't an entity, it was an echo, a reflection of how he felt inside, a hollow, shadowy version of himself. The candle dropped from his trembling hand, extinguishing on the rug. But the darkness no longer felt menacing. The silence in the apartment was no longer filled with a sinister presence. It was just empty. A different kind of horror washed over him. Not the fear of a monster, but the dreaded, aching realization of what his loneliness had done to his mind. He had become his own ghost. For a long time, Leo stood there in the dark, as the storm outside began to quiet. When the first gray fingers of morning broke through the clouds, he stood up and walked to the window. For the first time in months, he pulled back the curtains. The light made him squint, but he didn't turn away. Outside, the city was waking up, washed clean by the rain. He picked up his phone, ignoring the dust and smudges on the dark screen. He scrolled through his contacts, past his mother's name, and hesitated. Then, with a deep, shuddering breath, the first truly fresh breath he'd taken in a long time, he pressed the call button. This story was a presentation from Shadow Tales.